Alright, so I'm Ryan, otherwise known as the man in his music, and today is what would have been John Coltrane's 97th birthday, so I felt like there's no better time to kind of unveil um, my complete discography, something that I've compiled upon tons of different discographies, but the main one that I want to highlight in this video, the one that only made this video possible, I would say, is the John Coltrane Reference Guide. This came out in 2007 and was released by Lewis Porter, Chris DeVito, Yoshiro Fujioka, who I admire so deeply. I wish I had his level of knowledge on Coltrane. And then you got Wolf Schmaler and then David Wild. And they also have a website that keeps this book up to date, but it has not been updated since like 2015 or 2016. So you'll find things in here that kind of add to the book where they haven't really updated on the website or anywhere else. So I also want to make note that I do have a spreadsheet that I will be listing underneath this video. You can find that through a Google Doc link or a Google spreadsheet link, and then I'll have 3 links in there which will take you to an update page with, say I find something new or I'm making an update to or an edit to my my spreadsheet. It'll be included on there and it'll be made note of. I'll have a preface page with thank yous, like an introduction sort of, and then my references in APA format, and then lastly I'll have the release recording dates. So for each release that I'll highlight here and each release on my spreadsheet, you can find all the recording dates for each release. In this video I will be listing these in chronological order based off the first recording session. So let's say you have Lush Life, which has tons of you have like 3 or 4 sessions there that they made that album out of. I will be listing it in this list and my spreadsheet based off the first recording session for the album. So it'll kind of follow that theme, and then throughout this video I'll also be sharing things that'll be entirely on YouTube, so things that haven't been released at all in a physical format. It'll be on YouTube, Sugar Megs, Easy Torrent, but mainly YouTube and Sugar Megs to find most of this stuff. So anyway, I'm going to start it off with the first one here being First Giant Steps. This contains Coltrane's, I would say technically his second Navy recordings, because his first ones were on 78s and they're practically long gone, probably since destroyed or long past listening ability. So then the next 3, and the only unconfirmed recordings on this list, are Dinah Washington sessions. So the first one I got is Richest Guy in the Graveyard and Good Daddy Blues. And why I say these are unconfirmed is because Benny Golson claims that Coltrane was not at the Dinah Washington recording session that day or at all. So many lists exclude them, but I think it's kind of cool to just have it just in case. So the next one in chronological order, Dinah Washington, The Good Old Days. This is released years and years later. It has some additional takes, although not all of these were from that recording session. And then we go back to the last 78, Fast Movin' Mama, and then Juicehead Man of Mine. And then the next one is going to be Jazz of the 40s, Hot versus Cool, which contains some Dizzy Gillespie 78 material. And then we go to Chicago Records Collector's Blues Series Volume 5. This has some 78 material with Billy Valentine. Only 2 tracks, but this is really the only way that you'll be able to get it. And the next one, more Billy Valentine 78 material. This is West Coast Blues. This is CD5 to the set. Luckily, I found just CD5, but if you want this, you'll probably have to end up buying the box set and all that. And we got Tran's First Ride. So this contains his first broadcasts with Dizzy Gillespie. And it contains multiple dates, because you'll see here, I have another one that they kind of work with each other. This one is Burke's Works. This has the tenor saxophonist listed as Dexter Gordon, but it in fact is not Dexter Gordon, it's Coltrane all the way. I mean, you can tell, and it's been confirmed too by many sources. So then the next one is Train's First Ride Volume 2. I actually found a CD of this, and this is the only CD I've found, but whatever way that you can find this, I would highly recommend picking it up, because I think that this one is the best out of the three. But I also have one that's pretty cool too that I'll be showing. So then the next one will be the 78, which is pretty weirdly placed in the discography, because it is based off of one of these recording sessions, well, one of these live dates with Dizzy Gillespie, and it's basically the last two tracks, well, last track, because this is, the name of the track is Upapada, but it's Upapada Part 1 and then Upapada Part 2 on the other side. So I think this is probably one of the rarest 78s for Coltrane, but I think you can find the material on YouTube as well if you don't want to grab the 78 disc. All right, then we got School Days, which has Coltrane's. This was one of the early on finds that I had for early Train, but he's only on We Love to Boogie on here, and he's got a really killer solo. But despite the fact that he's only on one track, I still think it's a pretty worthy pickup. And then we go to The Champ, which has 78 Dizzy Gillespie material. And then we got 4 CDs, which I like to kind of slot together. You got Let's Ball Tonight, J.B. Summers and the Blues Shouters, Stompin' with Bill, and then Rare Train Tracks. And all 4 of these CDs will contain all of the early Gay Cross recording sessions. So you got Bittersweet, just those tracks. What was the other one? I think Fat Sam from Birmingham. So you get because there's alternate takes from that session too. So if you get all those CDs, then you have all that stuff. All right, so then the next one is Earl Bostic and his alto sax on a 10-inch. This was later reissued on a 12-inch disc, but this is the material that you want. When it was reissued on the 12-inch, it had additional material, but Coltrane wasn't a part of any of that. And the next ones are also Gay Cross. The first one is GC Rock and Easy Rockin'. They're all going to be on Republic for these 3. And this is with Gay Cross and his Good Humor 6. And then No Better For You and Tired of Being Shoved Around. And you can also find these on 45s too as well. I think they're equally as hard to find. So here's Easy Rockin' on a 45, and then Tired of Being Shoved Around on a 45. I haven't seen a 45 for this next one here, which is why I'm kind of sectioning it off. So you have Gotta Stop Loving You and Slave to Love. This is a vocal session with Christine Kittrell. This is actually the last of the Gay Cross material though. And then we go to Nashville R&B Volume 1. This has the one track, I Got a Feeling, with the Charles Ruckles Orchestra. The only song that Coltrane did with Charles Ruckles. But I feel like it's important to highlight. Because, I mean, everything that I'm discussing right now is what you need to complete the discography. There's so much. A lot of people thought that, it's kind of impossible to do that. But I've done some, thorough research throughout the past 4 years, and then I've also had a few people follow behind me in my tracks to make sure I'm covering all my bases. So then we got Nestor Rarities. This will have Strange Things, All the Rage, and then Ham Hocks and Hominy. Probably my favorite of the early Coltrane 78 material. And then we go to more of Johnny Hodges and his orchestra. And this has Coltrane listed as Johnny Coltrane, which I think is pretty neat because Johnny Hodges and Johnny Coltrane. And you can actually see Coltrane in one of these pictures right there, playing tenor. All right, and this is where we go to our first box set. This one is for Columbia. There's so much in this. If you look at my recording dates for the releases, you'll see just how many dates take up this box set, which I think makes it, you know, a really easy pickup. I think it's like $25, $30, and you get that much material. So then the next one we have is The Making of Roundabout Midnight. This is like a studio reel-to-reel. I don't know how the makers of this CD got it, but it contains some, like, you know, dialogue, some false starts, alternate takes that aren't included on the Columbia CD box set. And then I also want to make note of the studio albums in this list, because while you don't really need them, if you get the CD box sets and all that, I still think they're pretty important. So we have Roundabout Midnight, Miles Davis. So the first Columbia release. And then the Miles on Prestige, the first quintet. And then we go to the next box set, which will be the Prestige first quintet box set, only the first quintet. You have all this material, studio albums, but then you also have some live dates too here at the bottom. So if you check that out, like on Discogs or any site to really check those track listings, you can see the dates, and you can see the dates on my documents too as well. So then the next one I want to make note of is one that's only available on YouTube, and I would just call it Practicing For. Coltrane, you can hear him practicing for with an unknown drummer who I think is Philly Joe Jones. But like I said, the only way to get this, the only way to hear it is through YouTube. And the dates that I have on it, it should be sometime around 1956 if you're gonna go look for it. So then the next one is Roundabout Midnight Legacy Edition, and I'm placing this here because it has some extra material that would fit here in chronological order. All right, and then instead of getting Jazz in Transition and a jazz delegation for Paul Chambers, you could just get High Step on Blue Note, which also contains some additional unreleased material. So I think this is a really easy grab because the transition discs are not always the perfect quality, and then especially the jazz delegation discs too, especially the reissues on, I think it was Jazz West was the original label, but then they had another label that they switched to later on. So then we got Informal Jazz with Elmo Hope, which was later listed under Coltrane and Mobley, both of them individually for some reason. But for obvious reasons, I think you can tell that they did that because Elmo Hope wasn't too much of a huge star in the jazz scene. Maybe with, you know, people who were extreme jazz heads, but most people didn't know of Elmo Hope offhand. All right, so then the next three I'm going to piece together because they're basically the same, well, from the same sessions. You got Workin', and then you got Steamin', and then Relaxin', and then I'll get to Cookin' here in a second, but that has some different recording dates, so that's why I'll end up placing it here later on. So then we got Tenor Madness, which Coltrane is only on the title track, but still a killer album by the second greatest tenor saxophonist. And then the Sessions of Roundabout Midnight, another studio reel-to-reel thing going on here. This time, why I've included this one is because this one doesn't have Tad's Delight, but this one does. So you need this one and this one to get all that material. And the next one, Tenor Conclave. And then one that I like out of the CDs is the unissued Cafe Bohemia broadcast. This contains so many dates, a lot of missing stuff that people were like, you know, scrounging for in the early 2000s, maybe even the 90s with their discographies. But this also has Washington, D.C., Howard Theater recordings, and then also the Art Forward Jazz Party recording from November 1958. So this has so much material just packed on this one tiny CD. And then the next one is going to be Whims of Chambers, Paul Chambers on Blue Note. Miles Davis and the Modern Jazz Giants. Coltrane is only on around about midnight here. And then from that same session, we also have Cookin'. And then the next one I want to make note of is one that's exclusively on Sugar Megs. This is a recording with Candido, Donald Byrd, Paul Chambers, Art Taylor, and then Coltrane. I'm not sure how it kind of came together, but it's a recording at the Blue Note in Philadelphia, and the date I have on this is November 17th, 1956. So then the next one, and one that I kind of want to discuss a little bit, is Mating Call with Tad Dameron and John Coltrane. I think most people don't know this, but Clifford Brown was actually supposed to appear on this album. At least I heard from a few sources. But Clifford Brown sadly passed away like 4 or 5 months before this album was recorded. But when you really think about what was going on at the time, Clifford Brown was hanging out with Eric Dolphy at his house, and there's a bootleg tape for that. So they kind of had a little friendship going on. And then you also had Clifford Brown and Tad Dameron. They had some recordings too. But then the one thing that most people don't know is that Coltrane and Clifford Brown had actually recorded together. This was actually a live set. It was either in Ocean City or Atlantic City. I found that out through the Clifford Brown documentary that was made by a professor at my local college. So then next we got Miles Davis Quintet, Peacock Alley. Interplay for 2 trumpets and 2 tenors. Taylor's Wailers, although Coltrane is only on CTA on this one. And then a blow-in session +1. So this has the alternate take to Smokestack. And then I also want to highlight the studio album itself, the blow-in session on Blue Note. And then sort of a box set that you can also get on a CD is the complete Riverside Recordings with Coltrane and Monk. This is a Craft Recordings box set. And then Thelonious himself, which you don't need if you get the box set. And Coltrane only appears on 1 track on that album. And then we got The Cats, one of my favorite titles. I think it's got an all-star lineup. Kenny Burrell, Tommy Flanagan, Idris Selman. And then we got Mal 2, which I have a twofer, which has Mal 1 and Mal 2. But Craft Recordings just released or reissued Mal 2 itself, so you could probably pick that up pretty easily. Then we got The Dealers on Status. And then Modern Jazz Survey, but otherwise known as Dakar. The Modern Jazz Survey is the original. It was released in 16 and something RPM, and it was a 10-inch disc. It's got like a white label, so I think it kind of looked like a promo a little bit if you look at it, but I don't think it was. It was just some weird thing that they were doing. I don't really know the reason for it, but I would like to have it just as like, a novelty, but there's no way that I could play it. So then the next one is Catting with Coltrane and Quinchetti, Paul Quinchetti. And then to get the additional track, you pick up the CD, which has T for 2, which I don't know how they didn't want to put it on the album or substitute it for any other song. And then we got Coltrane, 7105 on the New York City label. There's so many ways you could get this, and you can get it on an OJC, the Analog Productions copy, but this is one of my favorites in my collection. I have an original. Then we got Lush Life. And then Blues for Tomorrow. And then we go to Thelonious Monk with John Coltrane on Jazzland. And then Monk's Music. And then Thelonious Monk at the 5 spot, completed the 5 spot on Gambit. This has some additional unissued tracks that you can only get on that CD. And then we go to The Last Train. Then we got two that I like to group together because the first one is the original artwork, John Coltrane with the Red Garland Trio. And then the alternate cover for this one is Train In. So both the same album. And then we got Sonny's Crib on Blue Note, one of my favorites. And then to get the alternate tracks, you pick up Sonny's Crib +3. And then we got the next one, the Complete Masters, a recent release this year actually, and I'll have another recent release in here too. So it's been an amazing year for Coltrane releases. And I also want to highlight the album itself, Blue Train. We got Wheelin' and Dealin', Winner's Circle. This is an Oscar Pettiford session, all-star session. And then the Modern Jazz Festival. This has an additional track that you can only get on this album for some reason, but the track is strictly instrumental. And we got All Morning Long by Red Garland, Soul Junction by Red Garland, and then High Pressure, but I have it on this twofer, which contains High Pressure and Dig It. So I think this is the easiest way to grab it, but this is the way that you will get High Pressure too. Alright, and then we got the Thelonious Monk with the John Coltrane Carnegie Hall performance. And the Art Blakey Big Band. This is a reissue, also on Bethlehem, which is the original label. But the original had the red cover. And then to get the additional tracks, you want to pick up The Outer World, listed under John Coltrane for some reason, and then the Bethlehem Years. And with this, you'll get the entire missing set of tracks, false starts, incomplete tracks, all that. And then I also want to highlight Dig It on Prestige. Then we got the Ray Draper Quintet featuring John Coltrane. And then Groove Blues, as well as the Big Sound, which these are kind of from the same session too. So I think the easiest way to get this is just pick up this twofer called the Big Sound, but it actually includes both records on there. Then we got the Believer, Milestones, which you don't need if you pick up that Columbia CD box set. And then we go to Soul Train. And then the Sessions of Milestones, which is another reel-to-reel weird release going on here. And then Kenny Burrell, John Coltrane. This is the alternate cover. The original, how it was that white and black cover. And then Mainstream 1958. And we got Countdown, which includes the alternate takes for the beginning of the Savoy sessions. Set in the Pace on Prestige. Gold Coast for more Savoy alternate takes. Dial Africa, which contains more alternate takes yet again. And then finally, the next Savoy release, Tanganyika Strut, Wilbur Harden. Black Pearls on Prestige. And next we got Jazz Track, Miles Davis. And then Session of Someday My Prince Will Come. Also one of those reel-to-reel tapes. And then the next Savoy release, Jazz Way Out, my favorite of the Savoy releases. Then we got Legrand Jazz by Michel Legrand. Miles and Monk at Newport, which this material, I also want to make note, is on the Columbia CD box set. Standard Coltrane. Alright, so then the next one is Bahia, Stardust, and then a live Miles Davis CD. This contains a lot of the Spotlight sessions at Washington, D.C., and then it also has a Birdland recording too to end it off. And then I also want to make note of Jazz at the Plaza Volume 1. The material on this is also on the Columbia CD box set, but I think this is still pretty important, and that's why I wanted to include it in this video. And then we got Live at the 5-Spot Discovery, and the thing about this that I think is pretty neat is actually Juanita Coltrane, or Naima Coltrane, Coltrane's wife at the time, had recorded it, and I think that's just phenomenal in terms of history. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. So, and then next one we got is New York, New York with George Russell, although Coltrane only appears on Manhattan on this album. And then my favorite of the bootleg CDs is the Private Basement Session at Joe Brazil's house. It's got Joe Henderson, Donald Towns, Coltrane, of course, Joe Brazil on alto sax, Sonny Red, Hugh Lawson, Ernie Farrow, and then Roy Brooks on drums. I think this is probably the lowest quality recording that you could pick up, but I think it's still pretty historic for the fact that, I mean, Coltrane and Joe Henderson recording together. Although they probably didn't know it, that somebody had, you know, a tape going. Then the next one is Hard Drive and Jazz. It was originally released by Cecil Taylor, but this is the reissue under Coltrane's name, because you can probably assume that Cecil Taylor didn't have too much of a liking in the jazz community, at least in the United States. Overseas he did, I'm sure. Then we got a Tuba Jazz, the last of the Ray Draper recordings. And this is where the next box set comes into play. The Heavyweight Champion, complete Atlantic recordings. I think this is a no-brainer to get this on CD, just because of the amount of material here. I mean, I wouldn't risk getting this on vinyl, you know, getting defects, especially this far in. I mean, it's been maybe 10 years since this, or actually no, over 20 years since this came out on vinyl. So I think the way to get the alternate takes is just to get them on the CD box sets. With the Miles Davis and John Coltrane Columbia box set, you could get that on the Mosaic Miles Davis and Coltrane 9LP box set, but I feel like that's kind of a dumb route to take in terms of, you know, having longevity with these recordings, getting the most out of them that you can. Then the next one, which you don't need, any of these next Atlantic albums that I'll be showing, you don't need because of the Heavyweight Champion. So Bags and Train, and then this was on Mercury, Cannonball Adderley, Quintet in Chicago. And then this is where the Kind of Blue stuff starts to fit in. So first we got The Making of Kind of Blue, which is the reel-to-reel stuff that they put onto a CD. You can hear some dialogue between them. And then we got the album itself, Kind of Blue. And then the WBOC, or I forget what, the NBC or something like that, whatever channel hosted it, but they had the Miles Davis Orchestra that he had with Gil Evans, and they did, Coltrane appeared on So What only, and then the orchestra did the Duke, Blues for Pablo, and then New Rumba. So I think that's a pretty cool release because you get the full entire broadcast. And then we got Giant Steps. And then the unissued Live at Birdland CD, which just contains some selective material that Coltrane appeared on. Only a few tracks, but the rest of it is stuff with just Cannonball Adderley. And then, you know, no horn players whatsoever. And we got Coltrane Jazz on Atlantic. And then unissued Live 1960. I like this one because it has acetate recording with Buddy Montgomery from around March of 1960. And then it also contains a real, like, stellar session. It's almost kind of crazy because you listen to the first tracks with the Buddy Montgomery acetate and they don't sound too great, but then you listen to the next one with the next 4 tracks being So What, Round About Midnight, Walkin', and then another version of So What, and it just sounds phenomenal. So this one is probably one of my favorites. And then we got Miles Davis in Avec Europe. It's got like 2 CDs in there. And then the Dragon Live in Stockholm release. And the Copenhagen 1960. And you'll see throughout this video, and if you look at my document, that I'm not including the Vinyl Me Please releases because you can find them easily elsewhere. And I kind of had these organized prior to that, so I felt like it was only right for me to just follow through with this. The releases that came before Vinyl Me Please. But if you look through my document and you find dates that, you know, you maybe want to get a better reissue, if there's one available, or, you know, a real reissue, then you could, you know, do that. But in this video, I'm including the ones that, you know, came before those releases. Then we got 1960 Dusseldorf. And this release is the only way to get the intro to Yesterday's. It's not on any other release. So, like, here's one. This is American Broadcast Collection for John Coltrane, and these tracks are included on there, but it doesn't have the beginning with the intro to Yesterday's. So this is the only way to get that. And then we go to the 1960 German concerts. Live in Zurich, 1960. On Green Dolphin Street. And then one that most people don't know about, I would say, is this, the complete Amsterdam recordings. So what, the Coltrane Reference Guide included one night of it, but there's also a second concert that happened at midnight, and that's on this one. So they're both recorded the same night, which was April 9th, 1960. And then another one of my favorites is the Live at the Jazz Gallery recordings, June 27th, 1960. And this has the first recordings with McCoy Tyner that you'll be able to hear. And then we go to Coltrane featuring Eric Dolphy. This has tons of material. I mean, the last tracks on this one are like Coltrane and Dolphy practicing at a unknown venue, but you can hear them quote different things because this is 1963. You can hear them quote Transition, The Last Blues, a few other things throughout that. And I just think this release here is probably one of my favorites, although I tend to have a lot in terms of Coltrane. But you also get on disc 1 a 30-minute version of Exotica, which that's probably the longest you played that. I'll just name a few of the more interesting ones. You get You Leave Me Breathless live, Speak Low live, Blue Train live, some other blues, Mr. Sims, Out of This World, Olay live, which is pretty neat. Some unidentified compositions, and then Chasing Another Train. So this is an amazing bootleg. And then we go to the next one, which is the Avant-Garde with Don Cherry. And then I would have the Best of Birdland, but instead of getting the Best of Birdland, if you get this CD called Like Sunny, then you get the material that was also on the Best of Birdland, which I don't really see a reason to get it because Coltrane is only on one side of that disc. But with this, you get the Best of Birdland and then also some additional tracks too as well. And then you get My Favorite Things and Coltrane Sound. And Coltrane Plays the Blues. And then Complete Live at the Sutherland, Chicago. But this is not complete. The only way to get the complete recordings, well, at least the rest of them, is to go on Sugar Megs, and then you'll find, you know, so much more. So I think it's kind of stupid that they say and claim that this is the complete recordings when it's really not. So then we got Someday My Prince Will Come. And then this is the interesting one that I got here. The Creed Taylor 50th anniversary Impulse release. And this is all CDs, but it's a little booklet you can see. But the main thing that you want here is 3 tracks that Coltrane did for a demo session before he presented it to Impulse. So you get Nakatini Suite, and then Laura, and The Damned Don't Cry. And these are all, like I said, demo sessions, so they're like, you know, rehearsal, and kind of, you know, not meant to be arranged for a release. But to hear Coltrane play Laura, it's so fascinating. Laura is one of my favorite tracks, written by one of my favorite all-time writers, Johnny Mercer. So I think to have this is pretty cool. So then we go to Africa Brass. And then the Africa Brass Sessions, Volume 2. And then Trans Modes. And you'll see in this throughout this video that I won't include the other ones of the genius of John Coltrane, or the mastery of John Coltrane, and that's because you don't need that material if you pick up everything else. But if you look at my spreadsheet, I'll have some of them listed. Just, you know, and I'll have on my spreadsheet a key, and things will be listed and highlighted certain colors, and you'll see like if something's highlighted blue, then that means you don't really need it if you get everything that's green. So then the next one is Olay. Then the 1961 Newport set. And then a recent release, but one that I don't recommend everybody pick up on vinyl because it didn't impress me, or really anybody. Evenings at the Village Gate. I would definitely pick that up on CD because they did release that on CD, and that's probably, like I was talking about earlier with some of these box sets, for longevity sake, this is definitely the way to go with the CD. All right, and the next one we got is the next box set, the complete 1961 Village Vanguard recordings. And then I also want to highlight some that you don't need, but I want to just show them. The other Village Vanguard recordings. Coltrane Live at the Village Vanguard. And then Impressions. And then we go to some Magnetic Records releases. First we got the complete Paris concert, and then the Copenhagen concert. And then Live in Cluteria, if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm not sure. November 22nd, 1961. And the next box set, which has tons and tons of dates, which is why I'm not including the other Pablo releases in this video, and then, you know, just some of the other bootlegs, because you can get all the material on here. If I'm showing Europe releases and stuff that was recorded overseas, it's because they're not included on this. So you got this box set. And then Live on Mount Meru Volume 1. And you don't really need this, but this contains something that you need to complete the collection, and that is the incomplete version of Naima that he recorded that night at the concert. This is only 2 minutes and 25 seconds though, so if you're not that much of a stickler, then you don't have to grab that. Then we got the unissued German concerts. And then the Jazz Icons, but this one kind of stumped me, because when you look in the Coltrane reference guide, it says that there's like ending credits, and they're being played in like a minor blues, some type of minor blues, and it was only available on this release on Jazz Door, which I was searching for this for probably about 2 years, and I ended up getting it recently. And Coltrane is not on the ending credits, it's just McCoy Tyner. So I was kind of disappointed, but a lot of the times throughout this experience trying to collect everything, I had a lot of issues with, you know, buying things that I didn't really need. And that's why I wanted to do this video, to make it easier for everybody out there, you know, if you want to complete Coltrane's discography. So then we got Ballads Deluxe Edition. And then the next box set, which is the 8 CD Classic Quartet recordings. And I think it's kind of stupid, because a lot of these deluxe CDs that I'll be showing in this video contain material that wasn't released on this box set. So you'll have to get this, and then this one, and then the rest of the deluxe edition Impulse recordings. So it's kind of a pain there. And then I also want to highlight Ballads itself. And then that Dynamic Jazz Duo, which also had an alternate cover too as well. And then the complete 1962 Birdland broadcast. And this contains 2 dates, so don't get the vinyl for this release. Get the CD, because it contains all the material. And then we go to Coltrane Deluxe Edition. And Coltrane itself. And then material that would have been on the Definitive Jazz Scene Volume 1 will be on the 8 CD Impulse box set that I just showed. And then we got the Impassioned Tenor Man, Duke Ellington and John Coltrane, everybody's favorite. And then the John Coltrane Legacy CD box set, which for most people you don't really need to pick up, but if you want 19 seconds of rehearsal and dialogue, then you get this, and you'll have that, and it's not included on anything else. So then next we got the 1962 Milan concert, which has multiple dates, so it's not just the Milan concert. This contains material from Italy, Paris, and then also Montreal, Canada. And then I also want to make note that the material for the Paris concert on that CD, the rest of it can be obtained only on Sugar Megs. So that date will be November 17th, 1962. And then the next release we have is the Stockholm concerts. And then the next year of Live at Clutario. And then for that concert, you can also get the rest of the recording on Sugar Megs, and it only contains the last missing track, so only 1 track on that one. And then the next one we got is the complete 1962 Copenhagen concert. 1962 Graz concert. Live at Penn State, 1963. Hooray for John Coltrane and John Handy. And then I'm going to show this, but I also have the regular version of it. But this is the New Directions box set for 1963. It contains all the 1963 recordings, except, you know, the bootleg stuff, obviously. But this is basically the deluxe edition for both Directions at once. So if you want to get all the material on one release, you can just pick this up and you'll be good. Alright, so then the next one we got is Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. And then more Live at Showboat. And this is one of my favorite bootleg CDs because it has Coltrane playing piano on After the Rain, if you can see there at the bottom. And then we go to Coltrane at Newport, My Favorite Things. And then if you get that CD, you don't need to grab the Selflessness because the material on this is from that concert and it'll also be on the 8 CD Impulse box set. And then we go to Live at Showboat. And then my favorite of all time release. I wish I could talk for, you know, hours on end just about this album in general, but I gotta keep it short with this video. Coltrane Live at Birdland, 1963. One of my favorite all-time favorite albums. And then probably my rarest Coltrane CD is Coltrane Lost Train Birdland. This is on All Blues Records. It's a bootleg. Obviously, they just kind of piece things together. You'll find on a lot of these. But this contains the rest of that set from that night at Birdland. And it has Lonnie's Lament, Mr. PC, and then Training In too as well. So I want to make note that this is the wrong date on this release. It's actually October 8th instead of October 10th. I'm not sure why they had it October 10th on here. These timings and the recordings match up with the previous, the concert from 2 nights ago. So this is from the same session, and it's what was missing. It's you know, to have it in a, like, to accompany that 1963 Birdland album is just phenomenal. Like, if I'm listening to that on vinyl and then I pop the CD in, it's just like the experience is unexplainable. But then the next one we got is Complete Live at Stuttgart. Probably the best performance, in my opinion, for the quartet, especially with McCoy Tyner. I think he was on this night. He got a full night's rest. You can hear him on Mr. PC just going crazy. This also contains some previously unissued tracks. One that you can only get on here, but then there's another release for this night, and it's only released on Oakman. So you either get that one or you get this one on Domino Records. And then we got the complete 1963 Copenhagen recordings. And then we go to Ralph Gleason's Jazz Casual recording. And then we got Crescent. Blue World. And I think we all know what's coming up. First I'll start off with Pep's Lounge. This is the first live recording of A Love Supreme. This is the entire thing. So, one of my favorites. Obviously a bootleg. And then we got A Love Supreme itself. Then A Love Supreme, the Complete Masters. And the John Coltrane Quartet Plays. And then the next recording you can find on Sugar Megs, and this is at the half note. And these recordings, the next two that I'll be mentioning, it just irks me so much because they cut the announcements to the intro to Chim Chim Cheree, and I think it was Alan Grant who was doing the announcements that night. And man, like, it just annoys me so much because the intro to Chim Chim Cheree is so godly, it's so heavenly. I think it's by far one of my favorites that I've heard Coltrane, go into. But to get the first, 30 to 40 seconds with the announcements and the intro, you can get that on Sugar Megs. So to start that date off, you get the Sugar Megs recordings, and then you get Bye Bye Blackbird, and these next two are kind of weird. This contains the rest of Chim Chim Cheree added onto the Sugar Megs recordings, and then because of this release, you have Impressions Incomplete. So to get the complete version of Impressions, you grab Roy and Other Rarities, a bootleg. And then we got One Down, One Up, live at the half note. New Wave and Jazz, which you don't need if you get the Impulse CD box set. Creation, one of the hardest bootlegs to get on vinyl. And then the next one for the Sugar Megs recordings will be of the same night for Creation, which was April 2nd, 1965, and that was at the half note in New York City. So then the next one we got, which you don't need if you get One Down, One Up, is Brasilia. Transition, which is the materials also on the 8 CD Impulse box set. And then Kulo Se Mama, Infinity, and then Kulo Se Mama +3. So this has the alternate tracks and then some additional tracks too as well. And then Ascension, but because there's two versions of Ascension, edition 1 and edition 2, you can get edition 1 and edition 2, but you also could get the Major Works of John Coltrane, which contains both editions as well as Om, and then Kulo Se Mama, and then Selflessness. So this is, bang for your buck. Grab this and you get all that material. All right, and then we got New Thing at Newport with Archie Shepp. Live in Antibes, 1965. Then Live in Paris on BYG. This is a Japan release. And then the next recording can be found on Sugar Megs. It was recorded at Soldier Field, the Downbeat Festival, and this has Ascension live with Archie Shepp. And the date for that one was August 15th, 1965. And then we go to the Complete Sunship recordings. And then Sunship itself. First Meditations. The unissued Seattle broadcast. This one is pretty neat because it contains a live version of Lush Life, and then you also get Donald Garrett on bass clarinet and bass. So this is just an amazing recording. And you also get Afro Blue and then an untitled original, which is 30 minutes long. So this one's one of my favorites. All right, and then we got Live in Seattle. Live in Seattle +2, which contains some additional takes. And then to get the rest of the concert, you can go on Sugar Megs, and you'll get the Penthouse Seattle missing tracks for September 30th, 1965. And then the next one we got is Ohm. And like I was talking about earlier in the video with the Joe Brazil basement recording, Joe Brazil actually appears on this recording, which I think is pretty neat that they kind of got back together for this. I don't think this was supposed to be arranged for a release. I think it was just something that Coltrane wanted to do, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to kind of agree with me. But if anybody else had some like thoughts about it, I would like to hear them, because like I generally don't know how to feel about that album, like whether Coltrane wanted to release it or whether he didn't. It is a good album. It's a bit far out, but I don't know if Coltrane intended on releasing that. So then the next one we got is Love Supreme live in Seattle. Recent release from last year. And then Meditations. Cosmic Music. And this is the reissue on Impulse. The original was on Coltrane Records, on his own label. Then we got Jupiter Variation, which you need this to get a version of Peace on Earth that you can't get on any other album. And then we got Live at the Village Vanguard again. Last Performance at Newport. And then Second Night in Tokyo, which is actually kind of weird because this is the first night in Tokyo, but it's listed as being the second night in Tokyo. And then Pretty Rare Bootleg, Kobe 1966, John Coltrane. And then this is where the Coltrane in Japan box set would fit in, but I chose the route of getting the US pressing and then getting the CD, which contains the missing track of Leo on that. So you could get the Coltrane in Japan box set that released only exclusively in Japan, or you could get the Coltrane Concert in Japan with this CD, which contains Leo, which is not on Concert in Japan, for obvious reasons, because it's just too long to put on vinyl for a two vinyl set. And then we got Offering live at Temple University. This was a RSD release, and it was actually released on Coltrane's birthday. I forget which year, 2014 of Coltrane's birthday, so I thought that was pretty cool. And the next one, Stellar Regions, one of my favorites, one that I hold up there with A Love Supreme. And then you got Interstellar Space Complete, which has the additional tracks. And then Interstellar Space itself. And then Expression. And then the last recording, the Olatunji concert, which I chose to get on a CD. And then as a little added extra to this video, I also want to include the recordings that from Coltrane's funeral. So to get those, it's kind of difficult. You could get them by searching the web. You could get something on YouTube or something on Sugar Megs. But if you want them truly like on physical media, you can get the Albert Eiler CD box set from the early 2000s. And this contains Marching In, pretty sure. Yeah, Marching In. And then a lot of other Albert Eiler material. This is probably one of my favorite Albert Eiler releases of all time. Just so much with that CD box set, which I only got for the funeral, but I thought that it was just crazy hearing Albert Eiler, through all the years and all that, because um, of course you got the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and Albert Eiler was the Holy Ghost. So then the last recording that you need is Ornette Coleman's track that he played there at the funeral, and you can get it on the Flying Dutchman Head Start Bob Deal Emergency, which this is just like a compilation of rare tracks from different albums. But that's it for Coltrane's entire discography. This is something that I wanted to do for a long time. I feel like this video isn't doing it justice, just going over the entire discography. So I will be making videos for, the individual years, just so that I can talk more in depth, because this video, it could have been 3 hours long, and I initially wanted to do part 1 and part 2, but I felt like I should just kind of bunch it together, because if you're watching this video, you're watching it to get, the entire thing. You're not trying to click on the next video and wait like 3 hours to, get to the end. So I want to thank everybody for watching, everybody who helped me. I'll have a list of everybody who helped me, because there's just so many people who helped me get to this point. This is, and will be, I hope at least, the definitive Coltrane discography. And like I said, I'll have documents set up so that I can increase the longevity of, this whole discography, because I'll be making updates. I'll include updates in the description too as well, if it's something major, but the majority of them will be found on my Google Documents, which I'll have linked below. And then, like I said, I'll be doing future videos on Coltrane now that I got this video out in particular. So thank you for watching. I really look forward to these next couple weeks, next couple months, just making videos about Coltrane now. And I also want to say happy birthday to Coltrane, because I don't think there's any other musician that has really held this much importance in my life. Not even musician, but just person, persona in general. Helped me through so many rough spots, so many difficult times, and then just, been music that I can play, and music that I enjoyed, and history that I could dive into and do something like this. And I also want to thank the writers of the John Coltrane Reference Guide, because, like I said in the beginning of the video, this never would have been possible. And I hope that maybe they can kind of see what I've done, and maybe I can get some updates going on their site too as well, because I know that they have a bigger, spread out thing on the internet. So thank you.